The sound of dishes crashing to the floor was my first memory of La Maison. I was 5 years old, watching in horror as my father's career as a restaurateur came crashing down, literally and figuratively. That night, as he swept up broken plates and dreams, he told me something I'd never forget. Sophia, in this business, you either own the restaurant or the restaurant owns you. 25 years later, those words still echo in my mind as I stand in the kitchen of Taste, watching my staff prepare for another busy night. They don't know I own this place. None of them do, except for my lawyer and accountant. To everyone else, I'm just Sophie Martinez, the quiet consultant who occasionally drops by to observe operations. My family? They think I'm a failed chef who couldn't hack it in culinary school. They're not entirely wrong about the culinary school part. I dropped out after 2 semesters. What they don't know is that I left because I was too busy buying my first failing restaurant and turning it around for a profit. You're throwing your life away, Mom had said when I quit school. Look at your sister Olivia, graduating medical school with honors, making something of herself. Ah, Olivia, the golden child, the successful surgeon who could do no wrong. Every family dinner became a celebration of her latest achievement, while my presence was tolerated with thinly veiled disappointment. But I had a plan. While they thought I was floundering, I was building an empire. One restaurant at a time, I acquired failing establishments, revitalized them, and either sold them for profit or kept them in my growing portfolio. I operated through a maze of holding companies and LLCs, keeping my name off any public documents. In the restaurant industry, anonymity was power. Taste was my crown jewel. When it came on the market 3 years ago, my family was devastated. It had been their favorite restaurant for special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations of Olivia's endless achievements. The previous owner, an old-school French chef, had run it into the ground with mismanagement and an outdated menu. I bought it through one of my companies, poured millions into renovations, and transformed it into the hottest reservation in the city. The irony of my family still dining here, never knowing it was mine, gave me a quiet satisfaction. Ms. Martinez. Miguel, my general manager, approached with a tablet in hand. The private party for tonight. The Martinez group? They've requested some special arrangements. My stomach tightened. Tonight was Mom's 60th birthday celebration, organized by Olivia, of course. I'd received the invitation 2 weeks ago, a reluctant inclusion that made it clear my presence was more obligation than desire. What kind of arrangements? I asked, though I already had a feeling I knew. They've requested 20 seats at the main table, but Miguel looked uncomfortable. They've asked for an additional small table near the kitchen for 1 guest. They said it's for family who's, more comfortable with the staff. The knife twisted deeper. Same old Olivia, finding ways to put me in my place. She probably told the restaurant it was for a socially awkward cousin or something equally dismissive. I see. I kept my voice neutral. And the main table arrangements? Miguel scrolled through his tablet. Dr. Olivia Martinez specified the seating. She's placed herself next to her husband Daniel at the head of the table, with their parents next to them. Then various aunts, uncles, cousins. He paused. She was very particular about the champagne service, only for the main table. Of course she was. Heaven forbid the family disappointment get a glass of champagne. I spent the rest of the afternoon in my hidden office above the kitchen, watching the security feeds as my family arrived. Mom and Dad first, Mom resplendent in a new designer dress. Then Olivia and Daniel, her surgeon husband, looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all dressed to impress. I arrived last, wearing a simple black dress that probably cost less than Olivia's shoes. The hostess, following instructions she didn't know came from my sister, led me to the small table near the kitchen doors. "You can sit here," Olivia said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Where you belong." She smirked, adjusting her diamond necklace. "After all, you always said you wanted to work in restaurants." The rest of the family tittered politely at her joke. Mom looked embarrassed, but said nothing. Dad suddenly became very interested in his menu. I sat down at my lonely table, watching the champagne being poured at the main table, listening to the toasts and laughter. Each time the kitchen door swung open, I caught glimpses of my staff, working with the precision and excellence I demanded when I rebuilt this place. Miguel approached my table, looking nervous. He knew me as the consultant who signed his paychecks, but he'd been instructed by Olivia to treat me like an unwanted guest. "Can I get you some water?" he asked quietly. I looked up at him, then at my family celebrating without me, then back at the manager who had no idea he was speaking to the owner of not just this restaurant, but 5 others across the city. "Actually," I said, reaching for my phone, "I think it's time for some changes to tonight's service." The next few hours would teach my family a lesson about judging books by their covers. And maybe, just maybe, they'd finally understand that success doesn't always wear a designer label or come with a medical degree. Little did they know, they were celebrating in my house. And in my house, everyone eventually learns their place at the table. I've learned something important in my years of running restaurants. Timing is everything. Whether you're plating a perfect souffle or destroying someone's illusions of superiority, it all comes down to the exact right moment. Sitting at my isolated table, I watched my family through new eyes. The way Olivia held court at the head of the table, regaling everyone with stories of her latest surgical triumph. How Mom beamed with pride while Dad nodded along, occasionally glancing at his phone to check stock prices. The cousins, aunts, and uncles all orbiting around them like satellites around a sun. 20 years of dismissal and condescension had led to this moment. But before I could make my move, Olivia decided to twist the knife one more time. "Oh, Miguel," she called out to my manager, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Could you please make sure my sister gets the special menu?" She threw me a smirk. "The one with prices removed. We wouldn't want her to worry about the cost." Miguel looked uncomfortable, knowing full well I signed his paychecks as the consultant. But he had his instructions from the party organizer. He brought me a menu, apologetic eyes meeting mine. "The special menu, as requested," he murmured. I opened it, noticing how Olivia watched expectantly, waiting for my humiliation. Instead, I smiled. "Miguel," I said clearly, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "please bring me your wine list, the complete one, including the reserve cellar." Olivia's eyebrows shot up. The reserve cellar at Taste was legendary. Bottles ranging from $500 to $50,000, carefully curated over years. Access was by invitation only, something she tried and failed to obtain despite her status as a regular customer. "Safia," Mom called from the main table, her voice tight with embarrassment. "Don't be difficult. You know you can't afford." "Actually," I cut in, "I think I'll have the 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild." I turned to Miguel. "From the private collection in Cellar 3. The room went quiet. Even the regular diners knew about that bottle. $15,000 of liquid history, part of a collection that the mysterious owner of Taste had reportedly acquired at auction. Miguel's eyes widened slightly. He knew that only one person could authorize that bottle. "Right away, Ms. Martinez," he said, a new note of respect in his voice. "Sofia, stop this immediately," Dad snapped, his face reddening. "You can't just order." "I can," I said calmly, "and I will." In fact, I stood up, straightening my simple black dress. "Miguel, please open the reserve cellar. I think it's time we shared some of our best bottles with the entire party." Olivia shot up from her seat. "You can't do that. Do you have any idea how much those bottles cost? They'll add it to Mom's bill. And—" "No," I said softly. "They won't." I walked to the center of the room, where all eyes were now on me. 20 years of being the family disappointment, the failed chef, the cautionary tale. It all ended tonight. "You see, Olivia, there won't be any bill tonight. Not for the wine, not for the food, not for anything." I paused, letting the tension build. "Because you can't charge the owner for dining in their own restaurant." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the wheels turning in Olivia's head, trying to process what I'd just said. Mom's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls. Dad's phone slipped from his fingers, clattering onto his plate. "What? What are you talking about?" Olivia managed finally. I smiled, the same smile I'd practiced in boardrooms and business negotiations. "Let me make this very clear. I own Taste. Not just Taste, actually. I own Le Petit Jardin downtown, Marina Bay on the waterfront, Rustico in the financial district, Cloud 9 at the top of the Anderson building, and Bistro 55 in the theater district." Each name landed like a blow. They knew these restaurants, the most exclusive, most successful establishments in the city. Places where they'd celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, Olivia's promotions. Places they'd bragged about getting reservations to, never knowing their failed chef of a relative signed the checks. That's impossible," Mom whispered. "Those restaurants are owned by the Martinez Restaurant Group." "Yes," I agreed. "They are. Martinez Restaurant Group, founded by Sofia Martinez, incorporated 7 years ago." I turned to Miguel. "Could you please bring my laptop from my office? The one above the kitchen." As Miguel hurried off, I could see the reality starting to sink in for my family. Every dismissive comment, every condescending remark, every time they'd look down on my failure, it was all coming back to haunt them. But you dropped out of culinary school," Olivia sputtered. "You couldn't even finish your training." "I dropped out because I was too busy buying my first restaurant," I corrected her. "A failing Italian place in the business district. Bought it for pennies on the dollar, turned it around in 6 months, sold it for triple the investment. Used that money to buy 2 more failing restaurants. Rinse and repeat." Miguel returned with my laptop. I opened it, logging into the restaurant's systems. With a few keystrokes, every screen in the restaurant, the ones usually showing wine selections and daily specials, switched to display the Martinez Restaurant Group's holdings and financial statements. Current annual revenue across all properties, $35 million, I announced. Net profit last year, $12 million. Market value of the restaurant group, approximately $150 million. The numbers hit them like physical blows. I could see Dad, the former accountant, mouthing the figures in shock. Olivia had gone pale, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of the table. "All those times you seated me by the kitchen," I continued, my voice carrying in the hushed room, All those times you made jokes about my restaurant career. I was signing your checks. Every bottle of wine you ordered to impress your friends. Every special table you requested. Every time you dropped my name to get a reservation. You were trading on my reputation without even knowing it. The look on their faces was almost worth 20 years of condescension. Almost. But I wasn't done yet. Because timing, as I said, is everything. And I had saved my best course for last. The thing about revenge, like fine wine, is that it's best served at precisely the right temperature. Too cold, and you lose the subtle notes. Too warm, and it overwhelms the palate. As I stood in my restaurant, watching my family process the revelation of my success, I felt a strange sense of calm. The expensive bottle of wine arrived, and I gestured for Miguel to pour glasses for everyone, even at my former lonely table by the kitchen. A toast, I said, lifting my glass, to assumptions and to their consequences. Olivia remained frozen. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the shock on her face. Mom kept opening and closing her mouth, like a fish out of water. Dad, ever the accountant, had pulled out his phone and was frantically Googling the Martinez restaurant group. But why? Mom finally managed. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you? I laughed softly. When would that have been appropriate? During the family dinners where you only talked about Olivia's accomplishments. Or maybe during those lovely holiday gatherings where you introduced me as your daughter who works in restaurants, like it was some kind of terminal illness. We were worried about you, Dad protested weakly, still staring at his phone. We thought you were struggling. No, I corrected him. You wanted me to struggle. You needed me to struggle, because my failure made Olivia's success shine brighter. Olivia finally found her voice. That's not fair. Not fair? I cut her off. Let's talk about fair, dear sister. I pulled out my tablet and pulled up some records. Let's discuss the 12 times you called my office, not knowing it was mine, demanding special treatment at my restaurants, or the time you tried to get my manager fired at Le Petit Jardin because he wouldn't give you a table without a reservation. The color drained from her face. That was, I didn't. Or perhaps, I continued, my voice steel wrapped in silk. We should discuss the review you posted online about Marina Bay last month. The one where you claimed to know the owner personally and threatened to have the chef fired. A gasp went around the table. Olivia had bragged about that review, about how she'd shown that uppity restaurant its place. I didn't know it was yours, she whispered. That's exactly the point. You didn't know, but you acted that way anyway. All of you did. I looked around the table at my assembled family. You treated service workers, restaurant staff, and anyone you thought was beneath you with contempt. And all the while, you were dining in my establishments, enjoying my success, and benefiting from my hard work. I nodded to Miguel, who disappeared into the kitchen. A moment later, he returned with a team of servers, each carrying folders. Inside these folders, I announced, you'll find some interesting documents. Financial records of every meal you've enjoyed in my restaurants, every special favor you've requested, every time you've dropped my name or claimed connections to get what you wanted. The servers distributed the folders. Hands shaking, my relatives opened them. You'll also find, I continued, receipts for every Christmas bonus I've anonymously given to the staff you've berated. Every tip I've added to make up for the ones you've skipped. Every repair bill for the things you've broken during your entitled tantrums. Mom was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. But I wasn't finished. And finally, I said, my voice carrying in the silent restaurant. You'll find lifetime bans from all Martinez Restaurant Group properties. Effective immediately. The explosion was immediate. You can't do this, Olivia shrieked, standing up so fast her chair toppled backward. We're family. Family? I raised an eyebrow. Was it family when you seated me by the kitchen tonight? Was it family when you mocked my career choice for 20 years? Was it family when you treated my staff, people who depend on me for their livelihoods, like they were beneath you? Safia, please. Mom pleaded. We can fix this. We didn't know. That's right, Mom. You didn't know. You never bothered to find out. You were too busy planning parties to celebrate Olivia's every minor achievement to notice that your other daughter was building an empire. I turned to Miguel. Please escort them out, all of them, and make sure their bans are implemented across all properties immediately. As security began to move forward, Dad stood up. Wait, the bill, for tonight. Consider it my last gift, I said coldly. A final meal in one of my restaurants, though I doubt you'll enjoy the taste of humble pie. I watched as they were escorted out, my proud family reduced to shocked whispers and backward glances. Olivia tried to protest one last time at the door, but the sight of additional security guards convinced her to leave quietly. Once they were gone, I addressed the other diners, who had watched the scene unfold with rapt attention. I apologize for the disruption, I said. Your meals tonight are on the house. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening. The applause that followed was unexpected but warming. I nodded to Miguel to bring me the expensive bottle of wine at my small table by the kitchen. My favorite spot, as it turned out. The place where I could hear the rhythm of my restaurant, feel its heartbeat. Over the next few weeks, the calls and messages poured in. Apologies, explanations, justifications. Mom left tearful voicemails about how proud she was, how she'd always believed in me. She hadn't. Olivia's messages swung between anger and attempted reconciliation. Dad sent lengthy emails analyzing my business success, offering unsolicited advice about tax strategies. I ignored them all. 6 months later, I opened my newest restaurant, a small, intimate place called Second Chances. The concept was simple. We hired people who needed a fresh start, trained them in the culinary arts, and gave them the opportunity I'd made for myself. On opening night, as I stood in the kitchen watching my new staff prepare for service, Miguel appeared at my side. Your family is outside, he said quietly. Your sister made a reservation under a different name. They're asking to speak with you. I thought about it for a moment, remembered the lonely girl at the table by the kitchen, remembered the years of dismissal and doubt. Then I thought about the empire I'd built, the success I'd achieved, the lives I was changing. Tell them, I said, tying on my apron and picking up a knife, that the owner is busy cooking, and remind them about their lifetime ban. Miguel smiled and headed out. I turned to my new staff, former addicts, ex-cons, abuse survivors, all getting their second chance. All right, everyone, I called out. Time to show the world what you can do. Remember what I always say. They joined in, voices strong and proud. In this business, you either own the restaurant or the restaurant owns you. I smiled, feeling the familiar heat of the kitchen, the energy of circus about to begin. This was my empire, built on hard work, skill, and the determination to prove everyone wrong. And the best revenge wasn't serving it cold. It was serving it perfectly prepared, beautifully plated, and completely out of reach. The kitchen doors swung open and another night of service began. In my restaurants, everyone eventually learns their place. Some just learn it the hard way. As for my family, they still try to get reservations at my restaurant sometimes, using different names or having friends make bookings for them. Each time, they're politely turned away. Each time, they learn again that success, like the best meals, is sweetest when earned. They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose how you deal with them. I chose to build an empire they couldn't enter, create success they couldn't claim, and find happiness they couldn't diminish. And every night, I still sit at that table by the kitchen, drinking expensive wine and listening to the symphony of a well-run restaurant. It turns out the best seat in the house was the one they thought was a punishment. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be cold. Sometimes it just needs to be served with perfect timing, impeccable presentation, and a side of lifetime ban.